Herbert's 100 Harem. Numerous projectors light up over the city to display a figure shrouded in darkness. Only a pale green light granted him any outline and shone particularly over a small pair of round glasses. "Hello, Dark Knight Riddler here. I introduce myself because as you failed to solve my riddles, I've truly begun to doubt your mental capacity. I was so looking forward to observing your tussle with the good mercenary, and now I find myself..." The monologue from the Riddler is cut off as he looks to the side and picks up a device. "Yes, Mr. Wilson. I know I was looking forward to it as well. You will? Excellent. You're certainly worth every penny and more, Deathstroke." He turns back to the camera. "You're in luck, Dark Knight. It appears Deathstroke the Terminator agrees with me and wants to fight you rather eagerly. To that end, this next riddle cannot even technically be considered such as it's more along the lines of an instruction. Although for the future, I suggest you take note on where you find a clue, for that may be a clue in and of itself." The screen then flashes a layout of the city with a particular building circled several times and numerous arrows pointing to it. Also a bit of hand-drawn script reads, "Here, you idiot." The screen goes to static and then starts repeating the Riddler's message, including the interruption from Deathstroke. The city moves. It was thought that things were happening late and something was wrong. The general consensus was that things had gotten in the way of the next part of the fun, that the little statues had just been a scavenger hunt. But a full-on puzzle for the community to solve? That was better. So much better. It seemed like the human had not only been fully ready for a second part of the plan, but had been from the beginning. An entire swarm of Sonier flies towards the tallest residential building, all to find Deathstroke already there, waiting with staff in hand and glaring around. The city remembers the last fight with him and how it was right out of the darker comic books. "You're late," is the only greeting Deathstroke gives them, even as most of the people who came are just staying at the sides, content to watch, but not to fight. After the last display, very few are confident they can take him, but some are. The first one out nearly makes Herbert go goggle-eyed. It's not some random Sonier woman in an outfit. She's in a painted black Sonier suit of power armor. She stands upright on her rear legs and slams a fist into a palm. The sound is an echoing smash that makes him nod in approval. He had been hoping for a good fight. Looks like he's about to get it. "Come then," is his only answer. Idly, he wonders how this sort of madness would fit into DC. A Batman beyond Splicer making his own batsuit and going ham. Who knows? But she certainly has the aesthetic. Night black, slight bat symbol on the chest like a splash of blood. Oddly sleek for power armor, but moving fast and well. This fight's going to need a lot of axiom to get through. Her first attack is a straight punch to the chest that he takes with the staff and uses axiom to affix it in the air, stopping the enormous blow with an almighty clang. "Why, detective, it seems you're out for blood tonight." One-liner out of the way, he slams his boot into the side of her knee and then pulls it forward after hooking it. She starts to stumble and snaps out the wings to get into the air and correct herself in an instant while opening some distance. He takes a moment to regard his staff and notes that there are actually stress markings on the metal. He'd been passively reinforced it by reflex and she still left a dent. He'd need to be careful. He retracts the staff and takes a few measured steps before extending it again to flick at her head armor, particularly for the eyes. The flinch is reflexive, but there. She then tries to rush at him, but her blows are terribly telegraphed, and had she written him a letter, it could not have been more obvious. He is forced to use a fair amount of axiom to push up the fist and force it not only off target, but well away from him. He can feel the thrumming power moving through the suit, and he slams his staff into an area where the most axiom is rushing through. He pulls it out of the power armor and into his staff before slamming it into her chest armor and dispersing the energy into a massive blow that sends her tumbling across the roof. "What? You... what? How did you?" Deathstroke can't use Axiom in the comics. The Batwoman protests and he sighs. I will meet any threat on equal ground. You want it to just be martial skill? Then it's just martial skill. You want tools and weapons? Fine. You want massive Axiom use and high technology? That's just fine. Herbert remarks slowly and at a low and comfortable tone. The Batwoman nods at that. It was a fair warning after all. Then she rushes at him so fast he doesn't have time to dodge and barely gets his staff in the way. Her wing, glowing with Axiom, shears clean through the reinforced metal and brushes aside his defenses. It does buy him just enough time to avoid being bisected, but she just went for a killing stroke. He doesn't trust her enough to pull a shot like that, and that means it's time for the gloves to come off. There's a reason why undaunted soldiers are trained to prioritize extreme speed and Axiom use. Strength is easier to counter and deflect, but speed. So long as they pay attention, someone moving at insane speeds is both untouchable and unstoppable. Of course there are counters. Everything has counters, and speed's main counter is its own strength. After all, the faster you go, the more resistance any amount of movement makes, and not just on the turning and braking. The air itself becomes something you have to push against more and more, making any move in any direction be akin to fighting a brutal wind. She fucking keeps up with him, but he still has some answers. He dodges under a stupidly fast punch that feels like it's distorting the air itself as it moves, drawing a small, tri-tight throwing knife as he does so. He then rams the Axiom-resistant blade right through a major armor line and cuts off the flow. She curses out loud as her coordination for her left leg goes right to hell, and he rolls behind her entirely. As he draws his next tri-tight knife, she takes to the air and does a quick bit of acrobatics to roll while out of his reach. She lands with the knife in hand before she crushes the thin metal. As the painted black blade falls to the floor, his only visible eye narrows. It's going to be a pain in the ass to readjust that one. Tri-tight's resistance means you can't just fast repair the things with Axiom. It'll need to be machined back into working order, bent into shape, or straight up reforged. Still, that she gave it so much attention means it was very, very well placed. Now he just needs an even better place to stick it without killing the woman. Then perhaps drag her off for a lesson in proportionate responses. Those wing blades on her armor are fascinating and well thought out, but not for use in public displays. Whatever cue she was waiting for goes off and she charges right at him. She's in an accelerated state, and keeping pace makes the air feel almost solid with the resistance it offers. Even moving with the wind feels like he's struggling through molasses. However, her armor is clearly absorbing most of the wind resistance and allowing her easier movement than he has. So he phases through her instead of fully dodging, then plants the knife in the main Axiom flow in the middle of the back, right in the most awkward place to reach, made borderline impossible with the armor's restrictions to movement. Her legs stagger a little and she falls to the ground ever so slightly, going down to all four like Mosonir as she loses most of her balance. Balance killed or not, she's still fast, and as she swings for him with the wing blade, she adjusts the armor to phase alongside the same frequency he used earlier, which causes him to cancel his own phasing and stay solid to allow the blow to pass through him. He turns and forces her to continue the movement, grabbing her from behind and putting her in a firm hold. "We need to talk, girl." He begins, and then his grip is broken as the armor enhances her strength. She grabs him, but he's already pumping Axiom as hard as he can to try and match the ferocious strength of the armor. About proportional response. If I wasn't trained as extremely as I was, you would be a murderess. "Oh, like you're one to talk, Deathstroke." She snarls at him, and his eyes narrow in frustration. The idiot went well beyond the boundaries of the game and thinks it's still on. He has to correct that act. He goes to kick her in the stomach to open some distance, and she catches his foot before levering herself up and slamming into his own gut. He's sent tumbling and the world is a blur. His instincts scream at him and he phases through the roof. He slams down into the ground a floor below and removes his helmet and hooks it into his belt. Crazy bitch needs to be looked in the eye. He jumps upwards and through the ground, rising up without the face-concealing helmet. I told you. Proportional response. You've pushed way too far. He shouts, and she pauses. Oh? She asks. His rising up without the helmet had made her pause. The Wingblades girl. You don't want this to be a fight to the death because even if you win, you lose. Humans are a vengeful sort. Then what do you suggest? This is a public performance, girl. A show, entertainment. We need to keep down the speed and keep out the lethality. Why the speed? She asks and he smiles. It's a show. They need to be able to see what we're doing. He responds and she snorts in amusement. Seriously, you may be the best fight so far, but if you keep up the lethality, I bring out the real weapons and go for the kill myself. Right. This is just a friendly game. Exactly. Although we do need to talk after this. A talent for violence and skilled power armor use can make good money with the undaunted. Tempting, but no. I've got my own thing going. This is just me having fun in my hometown, she replies, and he shrugs. Had to at least throw the pitch. He remarks before smirking as he grabs his helmet. So, are we agreed? Tone it down before we kill each other? Agreed, but for the goddess' sake, get this knife out of my back, she exclaims, trying and failing to reach the small blade in the small of her armor's back. All right, but did you have to crumple my other one? It's made of tri-tite. It's a bitch and a half to reshape. We have to do it old school, he asks, walking over and then pulling out the weapon. She lets out a sigh of relief and stands upright. Yes, I did. Those things are scary. Do you have any idea what it's like to be in a suit of armor and then have it suddenly malfunction? She protests. I actually haven't played much with power armor yet. Just old analog armor and the occasional well-made bodysuit. He remarks as he sheathes the blade and there's no answer. Although her axiom presence is swirling in ways he normally associates with his wives being caught doing something silly. And the imagination runs wild. He teases as he slips the helmet back on. He then drops his voice a few levels and shifts the body language. Well then, shall we continue? There's no response again. Granted, there's a lot of silence to go around and Herbert knows he's getting more attention now than ever before. How much do I have to pay in order to see you in a bodysuit? She asks. It's a full bodysuit, he answers. Still skin tight on a man in damn good shape, she answers. You'll have much better odds signing up for the Undaunted, he replies. Not the pitch he expected to make, but hey, if it gets just a few good soldiers in from this, it's worthwhile. That's a good point, she says before shaking her head. But that's for later. For now, Slade, we have a fight. We do indeed, detective, he says, and she rushes at him at sane speeds and unleashes a flurry of blows that he's forced to parry before he drop kicks her backwards and then rolls away. She pounces, but he catches her and sends her tumbling. With the boundaries properly established, the fight is back on.